Hello everyone, my name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute. Thanks for joining me for Preston's Ponderings. Well, I've been asked to comment on Revelation chapter 20, verses 4 and following. If we take the position that all prophecy is fulfilled, how do we explain the millennium? Without any doubt, the millennium is one of the pivotal issues in any study of eschatology. There are, of course, a variety of views concerning the millennium. Our premillennial friends say Christ will come to initiate the millennium, and that it is the new heaven and the new earth that comes at the end of the millennium. But Christ's coming is premillennial, that is, it takes place before and in order to initiate, to begin the millennium. Both the amillennial and the postmillennial view take the position that the millennium is essentially the Christian age, the age in which we're living now, and that Christ's coming is post-millennial. That is, Christ's second coming occurs at the end of the Christian age being the millennium. Therefore, the coming of Christ is post, that is, after or at the end of the millennium. There's another view, of course, that is gaining a great deal of popularity because it's so solidly biblical, and that is that the millennial period is a spiritual designation for the period of time from Christ's personal ministry until immediately before the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70. And of course that obviously raises an awful lot of questions, and a lot of people say, well, you can't make a millennium to be 40 years. Well, if we're talking symbology, if we're talking metaphoric numbers, of course we can. There's no reason why 1,000 cannot refer to the quality of a period of time, not the quantity of a period of time. Well, let's take a real quick look and to see if the millennium can be in any way whatsoever defined as the period of time from Jesus' personal ministry until immediately before the time of the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70. In other words, was the millennium a first century phenomenon, and are we now living in the new heavens and the new earth? In order to help us answer this question, all we have to do really is take a look at the text of Revelation chapter 20 and to see the constituent elements, the descriptive elements that belong to the period of the millennium. Now, what I'm going to share with you here is a really abbreviated form of what is found in my book, Who is This Babylon? I've recently revised and greatly expanded this book, and I have a very special study strictly on the millennium. And when did it begin? When did it end? Etc., etc. So let me recommend that you get my book, Who is This Babylon? That can be found at www.eschatology.org or www.bibleprophecy.com. And get the book, Who is This Babylon? And it will go into tremendous detail, and I can promise you this. You won't find this material much of anywhere else. It's really some great groundbreaking material, and it has been hailed by both scholars and laymen alike as really definitive in regard to the millennium. Okay, let's talk about the constituent elements then of the millennium. Point number one, John describes the millennium as a time in which Satan was bound. All we have to do is go back into the personal ministry of Jesus. Jesus sent his disciples out on a limited commission and told them to preach to Israel. They came back rejoicing. And, you know, the demons were subject to them. They could heal people, etc., etc. And Jesus said, don't rejoice over that only, but rejoice that your names are found in heaven. But he said, I saw heaven cast down from heaven. Well, that, of course, is reflective of Revelation chapter 12, in which there was a great war in heaven, and Satan was cast out. Revelation chapter 12. In Matthew chapter 12, Jesus once again spoke of his power over the demonic forces. He was accused of casting out demons by the power of the devil, and he challenged his audience. A house divided against itself cannot stand. But he says, how does one go into the house of a strong man and there spoil his goods, except he first bind the strong man. In other words, Jesus' power being demonstrated in his personal ministry was a demonstration that Satan was being bound even right then. I would also call your attention to the fact that in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, in regard to the man of sin, point number 1, Paul said the man of sin, who most assuredly was the agent of Satan, was he not? The man of sin, number 1, was already alive. Already alive. And Paul said, you, that is the Thessalonians living 2,000 years ago, you know who is restraining him even now. Now, you know, folks, it's kind of hard to restrain somebody that isn't there, isn't it? Paul said the man of sin was alive. The spirit of lawlessness is already at work. But you know who is restraining him until he or it, the restraining power, is taken out of the way. This corresponds perfectly with Revelation chapter 20, that Satan was being bound, but was to be loosed in a little while, or at the end of the millennium, and to be able to operative for a little while, and then be destroyed at the coming of the Lord. So, point number 1 in our discussion of the millennium is this. In the millennium, Satan was bound. The constituent element of Satan being bound is found in the personal ministry of Jesus when he said, except a man go into the strong man's house and bind him, he said, you cannot spoil that man's goods. Jesus was in the process of spoiling the man's house. We see Paul saying in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 that the man of lawlessness, who was Satan's minion, was at that time being restrained, but would in due time be released and then destroyed at the coming of the Lord. So, when we look at the constituent elements found in Revelation chapter 20, point number 1 is Satan was bound during the millennium. During the personal ministry of Jesus, Satan was bound. We'll take a look at the rest of the constituent elements of the millennium on the flip side. Thanks for joining me for Preston's Ponderings.